product and their elimination. Uh, till now, I have completed 4 chapters: breathing, blood circulation, neural control and coordination, and chemical control and coordination. Hormones वाला तो अभी बचा हुआ है excretion and locomotion and movement. So today's target is to complete and finish the excretory product and their elimination within a 1 hour. So let's start it without any delay. Okay, animals. Okay, all done. Start it. Animal accumulate ammonia, urea, uric acid, carbon dioxide, water, and ions like the sodium, potassium, calcium, phosphate, sulfate, etc., either by the metabolic activities or by the other means like the excess ingestions. These substances has to be removed totally or partially. In this chapter, you will learn the mechanism of elimination of these substances with special emphasis on the common nitrogenous wasted. Ammonia, urea, and uric acid are the major forms of nitrogenous waste excreted by the animals. Ammonia is the most toxic form and requires the large amount of water for its elimination, whereas uric acid, being the least toxic, can be removed with the minimum loss of water. The process of excretion ammonia in a ammonotelism. Many bony fishes, aquatic amphibians, aquatic insects are the ammonotelic in nature. Bony fishes are the ammonotelic in nature. ओके अमोनिया एज इट्स रेडली सॉल्युबल है, आसानी से पानी में घुल मिल सकता है. इट इज जनरली एक्सक्रिएटेड बाय द डिफ्यूजन अक्रॉस द बॉडी सरफेस और थ्रू द गिल्स सरफेस इन फिशेज में एज अमोनियम आयंस के फॉर्म में एक्सक्रीट होता है, बॉडी से डिफ्यूज होता है, बॉडी सरफेस से डिफ्यूज होता है और गिल्स के सरफेस के थ्रू भी डिफ्यूजन हो सकता है अमोनियम आयंस के थ्रू. Kidney do not play any significant role in its removal. Terrestrial adaptations necessitate the production of large toxic nitrogenous waste like the urea and uric acid for the conservation of water. Mammals, many terrestrial amphibians, marine fishes mainly excrete urea and are called the urotelic animals. Ammonia produced by metabolism is converted into the urea in the liver of these animals and released into the blood. The ammonia produced by the metabolic is converted into the urea and liver of these animals and released into the blood, which is filtered and excreted out by the kidney. Some amount of urea may be retained in the kidney matrix of some of these animals to maintain a desired osmolarity. Reptiles, birds, land snails, and insects excrete nitrogenous waste as uric acid in the form of pellet or the paste with a minimum loss of water and are called as uricotelic animals. Marine fishes are the ureotelic and bony fishes are the ammonotelic. Bony fishes are ammonotelic. A survey of animal kingdom present a variety of excretory structures in most of the invertebrates. These structures are the simple tubule form, whereas the vertebrates have a complex tubular organ called the kidney. Some of these structures are the mentioned here. Protonephridia or the flame cells are the excretory structures in the Platyhelminthes, flatworm, planaria, rotifers, and some annelids, and the cephalochordates, amphiox. Protonephridia are primarily concerned with the ionic and the fluid volume regulation and osmoregulation. Nephridia are the tubular excretory structures of the earthworm. Other annelids, nephridia help to remove nitrogenous waste and maintain a fluid and ionic balance. Malphizian tubules are the excretory structures of most of the insect, including the cockroach. Malphizian tubules help in the removal of nitrogenous waste and osmoregulations. Antennal glands and the green glands perform the excretory functions in the crustaceans like the prawns. Antennal glands are present in the prawns. Antennal glands का दूसरा नाम है green glands. Okay. Now it's the part of human excretory system. In humans, the excretory system consists of a pair of a kidney, one pair of ureters and urinary bladder. And urethra. Kidney are reddish brown, bean shaped structures situated between the level of last thoracic and third lumbar. Last thoracic, third lumbar. Vertebra close to the dorsal inner wall of the abdominal cavity. Each kidney of an adult human measures 12 to 10 centimeter in length and 5 say 7 centimeter in width, 2 say 3 centimeter in thickness with an average weight of 120 to 170 grams towards the center of the inner concave surface. The center पे of a kidney is a notch called the hilum through which ureter, blood vessels, nerves enter. Inner to the hilum is a broad funnel shaped space called renal pelvis with projections called the calyxes. The outer layer of a kidney is a tough capsule. Inside the kidney, there are the two zones, the outer cortex and the inner medulla. The medulla is divided into the few conical masses, medullary pyramids projecting into the calyxes. The medulla is divided into few conical masses जिसे हम मेडुलरी पिरामिड कहते हैं जिनकी प्रोजेक्शंस इनटू द कैलिक्स में आती हैं सिंगल calyx. The cortex extend in between the medullary pyramids. In between the medullary pyramids are renal column called the column of Bertini. Okay. Each kidney has nearly 1 million complex tubular structure called the nephron, which are the functional unit. Each nephron has the two parts, the glomerulus and the renal tubule. The glomerulus is a tuft of capillaries formed by the afferent arterioles, a fine branch of renal artery. Afferent arteriole is itself a fine branch of renal artery. Blood from the glomerulus is carried away by the efferent arterioles. Glomerulus से ब्लड दूर किससे जाता है इफरेंट आर्ट्रियोल के जरिए द रीनल ट्यूब्यूल बिगिंस विथ शुरुआत कहाँ से होती है डबल wall cup shaped like structure called the woman's capsule which encloses the glomerulus. Glomerulus along with the woman's capsule is called as Malpighian body or the renal corpuscles. The tube continues further to form the highly coiled network proximal convoluted tubule PCT. The PCT, a hairpin shaped hairpin loop, is the next part of the tubular which has a descending and the ascending limbs. The ascending limbs continue as another highly coiled tubular region called the DCT. The DCT of the many nephrons open into a straight tube called the collecting duct, many of which converge and open into the renal pelvis through the medullary pyramids in the calyxes. The malphizian corpuscles PCT and DCT of the nephrons are situated in the cortical region of the kidney, whereas the loop of Henle's dips into the medulla. In majority of the nephrons, the loop of Henle is too short and extended only a very little into the medulla. Such nephrons are called the cortical nephrons. In some of the nephrons, the loop of Henle is very long and run deep into the medulla. These nephrons are called the juxtamedullary nephrons. The efferent arterioles emerges from the glomerulus, form a fine capillary network around the renal tubules called the peritubular capillaries. A minute vessel of this network runs parallel to the Henle's loop, forming a U-shaped vasa recta. Vasa recta is absent on highly reduced or cortical nephrons. Now it's time to see the diagrams. Human urinary system की डायग्राम में हम देख लेते हैं. ऊपर हमारे पास जो ब्लू कलर की है वो inferior vena cava है, then it's pelvis, then there is a medulla and cortex. Okay, and there is adrenal gland, renal artery, renal vein. आगे रीनल आर्टरी है और पीछे रीनल वेन है, ये चीज ध्यान देनी है. किडनी, डॉर्सल अयोटा आगे है और इंफीरियर वेना कावा पीछे. नाम से इंफीरियर तो पीछे रखना है. रेड वाला क्या है? डॉर्सल अयोटा है. फिर उसके बाद यूरेटर है, यूरिनरी ब्लैडर है और यूरेथ्रा है. आगे का डायग्राम, लॉन्गिट्यूडनल सेक्शन डायग्रामेटिक रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ किडनी में हमें दिखाया गया है कैलिक्स, ठीक है, रीनल आर्टरी, ओके, रीनल वेन, देन रीनल पेल्विस एंड यूरेटर, और लेफ्ट साइड में मेडुलरी पिरामिड्स हैं, रीनल कॉलम्स हैं. रीनल कॉलम्स को ही कॉलम ऑफ वर्टिनी कहा गया है. कॉर्टेक्स और रीनल कैप्सूल है. ओके, देन अनदर डायग्राम, द डायग्रामेटिक रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ द नेफ्रॉन शोइंग द ब्लड वेसल्स, डक्ट्स एंड द ट्यूब्यूल्स. तो सबसे पहले एफरेंट आर्ट्रियोल है, ग्लोमेरुलस है, इफरेंट आर्ट्रियोल्स है, वुमेन्स कैप्सूल है, प्रॉक्सिमल कॉन्वोल्यूटेड ट्यूब्यूल है, डीसीटी है, पीसीटी है, कलेक्टिंग डक्ट है, वासा रेक्टा है, असेंडिंग लूप ऑफ हेनली है, डिसेंडिंग लूप ऑफ हेनली है, और ये मिला के हेनलीज लूप है. Okay, then here's another diagram of malpighian body. Malpighian body, renal capsules. Renal capsules and renal column is the column of Bertini. मुझे इन दो टर्म में बहुत confusion होती है. Renal capsule is a malpighian body and column of Bertini is called as renal column. अच्छा, कॉलम से याद रखना, कॉलम कॉलम जैसे हमें कॉलम ऑफ बर्टीन तो रीनल कॉलम, माल्फिजियन बॉडी तो रीनल कॉर्पसल, रीनल कॉर्पसल, हाँ कंफ्यूजन. ठीक है, इसमें डायग्राम में क्या क्या है? एफरेंट आर्ट्रियोल है, इफरेंट आर्ट्रियोल्स है, एंड देयर इज अ वोमेन कैप्सूल, डबल वॉल्ड कप स्ट्रक्चर्स हो गए थे, और फिर प्रॉक्सिमल कॉन्वोल्यूटेड ट्यूब्यूल स्टार्ट होती है. ठीक है, अब बात करते हैं यूरिन फॉर्मेशन की. ठीक है, urine formation involves the three main processes, namely glomerular filtration, reabsorption, and secretion, that take place in different parts of the nephron. The first step in the urine formation is the filtration of blood, which is carried out by the glomerular and glomerulus, and it is called as glomerular filtration. ऑन एन एवरेज देखा जाए तो 1100 से लेके 1200 ml तक का ब्लड फिल्टर होता है बाय द किडनी पर मिनट. बाय द किडनीज, दोनों किडनी का मिला के है, किडनीज दोनों किडनी का मिला के हर एक मिनट में 1100 से लेके 1200 तक का ml ब्लड फिल्टर होता है दोनों किडनी से मिलाकर पर मिनट में, विच कॉन्स्टिट्यूट रफली, जो कि 1/5 ऑफ द ब्लड है पंप बाय द ईच वेंट्रिकल. हर एक वेंट्रिकल ऑफ द हार्ट एक मिनट में जितना ब्लड पंप करता है उसका 1/5 पार्ट दोनों किडनी मिला के फिल्टर करती हैं ऑफ द हार्ट इन द मिनट. द ग्लोमेरुलर capillary blood pressure causes filtration of blood through the three layers: the endothelium of the glomerulus, blood vessels, and the epithelium of a woman's capsule and the basement membrane between these two layers. The epithelial cells of the called women's capsule called the podocytes, जो epithelial cells हैं इनमें, उन्हीं को क्या कह रहे हैं, podocytes कह रहे हैं, are arranged in an integrated manner so as to leave some minute space called the filtration slit or the slit pore, इन्हीं को कहा जाता है. Blood is filtered so finely through these membrane that almost all the constituent of the plasma membrane, sorry, all the constituent of the plasma except the protein passes onto the lumen of the woman's capsule. Therefore, it is considered as a process of ultrafiltration. तो एंडोथीलियम ग्लोमेरुलस, एंडोथीलियम ब्लड वेसल्स में मिलेगी, ग्लोमेरुलस ग्लोमेरुलस वाले में मिलेगी बेसमेंट मेम्ब्रेन इन दोनों के बीच में, और एपिथेलियम सेल जो है वुमेन्स कैप्सूल उसमें एपिथेलियम सेल्स मिलेंगे, सिंगुलर पैटर्न इरेगुलर शेप स्ट्रक्चर. फिल्ट्रेशन किसका होता है, प्लाज्मा माइनस प्रोटीन्स का. ठीक है, यहाँ तक हो गया. The amount of filtrate formed by the kidney per minute is called as the glomerular filtration rate. Amount of filtrate जो कि किडनी से दोनों किडनी का मिला के बनता है पर मिनट में, उसी को ग्लोमेरुलर फिल्ट्रेशन रेट कहा जाता है. GFR ऑफ अ हेल्दी इंडिविजुअल इज अप्रोक्सीमेटली 125 ml पर मिनट. GFR एक नॉर्मल इंसान का कितना होता है, 125 ml पर मिनट, दैट इज 180 लीटर पर डे. The kidney have built-in mechanism for the regulation of the glomerular filtration rate. One such efficient mechanism is carried out with juxtaglomerular apparatus, JGA. JGA is a special sensitive region formed by the cellular modification in the DCT and afferent arterioles at the location of their contact. A fall in the GFR can activate the juxtaglomerular cells to release the renin, single N wala RENIN, which can stimulate the glomerular blood flow and thereby GFR back to the normal. A compression of volume of the filtrate form per day is 180 liter. A comparison of volume of the filtrate form per day, 180 liter per day, with that of the urine release 1.5 liters suggested that the nearly 99% of the filtrate has to be reabsorbed by the renal tubule. This process is called as the reabsorption. The tubular epithelial cells in the different segments of the nephron perform this either by the active or the passive mechanism. For example, substances like the glucose, amino acids, and the sodium ions in the filtrate are reabsorbed by the actively, whereas the nitrogenous waste are absorbed by passive transport. Reabsorption of water also occur passively in the initial segments of the nephrons. In the filtrate, reabsorb actively, whereas the nitrogenous waste reabsorbed by the passive transport. Reabsorption of water also occur passively in the initial segments of the nephron. During the urine formation, the tubular cells secrete करती substances like the sodium ion, no, sorry, hydrogen ion, potassium ion, and ammonium ion into the filtrate. Tubular secretions is also an important step in the urine formation as it helps in the maintenance of the ionic and acid-base balance of the body fluid. Functions of these tubules की बात करते हैं तो proximal convoluted tubule PCT is lined by the simple cuboidal brush border epithelium, which increases the surface area for the reabsorption nearly all the essential nutrients. 70 to 80% of the electrolytes and the water are reabsorbed by this segment. PCTs also help in the maintenance of the pH and ionic balance of the body fluid by the selective secretions of the hydrogen ion and ammonium ion into the filtrate and by absorption of carbonate from it. पीसीटी में किस किस की सिक्रेशन हो रही है, H प्लस की और अमोनियम आयन की, एंड री एब्जॉर्प्शन किसका हो रहा है, HCO3 फ्रॉम इट. डायग्राम में देख सकते हैं HCO3, NaCl, न्यूट्रिएंट्स, वाटर, पोटेशियम, ये सब रीएब्जॉर्ब या एब्जॉर्ब होते हैं. सिक्रीशन H प्लस और अमोनियम आयन की होती है. हैंलीज लूप की बात करते हैं तो रीएब्जॉर्प्शन इज मिनिमम इन दी thin segment of its ascending limb. However, this region play a very significant role in the maintenance of the high osmolarity of the medullary interstitial fluids. The descending limb of the loop of Henle is permeable to the water but almost impermeable to the electrolyte. This concentrate the filtrate at its move down. The ascending limb is impermeable to the water but allow transport of electrolytes actively or passively. This is the line come in the NEET 2026, ReNEET 2026, where it was Henley's loop में इलेक्ट्रोलाइट्स की ट्रांसपोर्ट एक्टिवली और पैसिवली होती है. देयरफॉर एज द कंसंट्रेटेड फिल्ट्रेट पास अपवर्ड इट गेट्स डाइल्यूटेड ड्यू टू द passage of electrolyte to the medullary fluid में चला जाता है. डिस्टल कॉन्वोल्यूटेड ट्यूब्यूल्स की बात करते हैं, DCT. Conditional reabsorption of sodium and water take place in this segment. DCT is also capable of reabsorption of the carbonate and selective secretion of hydrogen, potassium, and ammonium ion to maintain the pH and sodium potassium balance in the blood. Okay. Collecting duct की बात करते हैं. This is a long duct extended from the cortex to the kidney to the inner part of the medulla. Large amount of water could be reabsorbed from this region to produce a concentrated urine. This segment allows passage of small amount of urea in the medullary interstitium to keep up the osmolarity. It also play a role in maintenance of pH and ionic balance of the blood by the selective secretion of H plus and potassium ion. कलेक्टिंग डक्ट में भी देखें हम तो हमें हाइड्रोजन और पोटेशियम आयन की सेलेक्टिव सिक्रेशन देखने को मिल सकती है. सिक्रेशन देखने को मिल सकती है. सेलेक्टिव सिक्रेशन, सेलेक्टिव सिक्रेशन एंड सेलेक्टिव सिक्रेशन, ठीक है, हर जगह पे सेलेक्टिव सिक्रेशन है. तो पीसीटी में अमोनियम एंड हाइड्रोजन एंड डीसीटी में अमोनियम, हाइड्रोजन एंड पोटेशियम, और कलेक्टिंग डक्ट में हाइड्रोजन एंड पोटेशियम की सेलेक्टिव सिक्रेशन हो रही है. Mammals has the now mechanism of concentration of the filtration topic है, इसमें देखते हैं. Mammals has the ability to produce a concentrated urine. The Henle's loop and vasa recta play a significant role in this. The flow of the filtrate in the two limbs of Henle's in opposite direction and thus form the countercurrent. The flow of blood through these two limbs of the vasa recta is also in the counter current pattern. The proximity between the Henle's loop and vasa recta as well as the counter current in them help in the maintenance of increasing the osmolarity towards the inner medullary interstitium, that is the 300 milliosmoles in the cortex to about 1200 milliosmoles in the inner medulla. The gradient is mainly caused by the NaCl and urea. NaCl is transported by the ascending limb of the Henle's. थोड़ी डिस्टर्बिंग एलिमेंट्स हैं इस घर में. मेरी बहन पढ़ लेती हूँ. The gradient is mainly caused by the NaCl urea. NaCl is transported by the segment ascending limb of loop, and which is example of the ascending limb of Henle's loop, which is example हल्दी वाला दूध पीना है तबीयत सही नहीं है फिर भी पहले दिन फिर से The gradient is mainly caused by the NaCl and urea. NaCl is transported by the ascending limb of Henle's loop, which is exchanged with the descending limb of vasa recta. NaCl is returned to the interstitium by the ascending. Again, restart. The gradient is mainly caused by the NaCl and urea. NaCl is transported by the ascending limb of loop of Henle's, which is exchanged with the descending limb of vasa recta. NaCl returned to the interstitium by the ascending portion of vasa recta. Similarly, a small amount of urea transported back to the interstitium by the collecting tubules. The above described transport of substances facilitated by the special arrangement of Henle's loop and vasa recta is called as countercurrent mechanism. The mechanism help in maintaining the concentration gradient in the medullary interstitium. In the medullary interstitium, presence of such interstitial gradient help in the easy passage of water from the collecting tubules, thereby concentrating the filtrate urine. Human kidney. can produce urine nearly 4 times concentrated than initial filtrate form. Regulation of the kidney and functions की बात करते हैं. The function of a kidney is efficiently monitored and regulated by hormonal feedback mechanism involving the hypothalamus, JGA, and a certain extent of the heart. Osmoreceptors in our body are activated by change in the blood volume, body fluid volume, and ionic concentration. An excessive loss of fluid from the body can activate these receptors, which stimulate the hypothalamus to release the antidiuretic hormone ADH or the vasopressin from the neurohypophysis. ADH facilitate करता है water reabsorption from the later part of the tubules BCT से and thereby preventing the diuresis को prevent करता है. An increase in the blood body fluid volume can switch off the osmoreceptors and suppress the ADH release to complete the feedback. ADH can also affect the kidney functions by its constrictory effect on blood vessels. This cause an increase in the blood pressure, and increase in the blood pressure can increase the glomerular blood flow and thereby the GFR. The JGA plays a complex regulatory role. A fall in the glomerular blood flow, glomerular blood pressure, GFR can activate the JGA cells to release the renin, which convert the angiotensinogen in blood to angiotensinogen 1 and further to angiotensinogen 2. Angiotensinogen 2 begin a powerful vasoconstrictor, increase the glomerular blood pressure and thereby GFR. Angiotensin also activate करता है adrenal cortex को to release the aldosterone. Aldosterone causes the reabsorption of sodium and water from the distal part of the tubules. This also leads to increase in the blood pressure and GFR. This complex mechanism is generally known as renin-angiotensin mechanism. An increase in the blood flow to the artery of the heart can cause the release of arterial din- arterial natriuretic factor ANF. ANF can cause dilation of blood vessels and thereby decrease the blood pressure. ANF mechanism therefore act as a check on renin angiotensinogen mechanism. Okay. बात करते हैं मैक्चुरेशन की. Urine formed by the nephron is ultimately carried to the urinary bladder, where it is stored till the voluntary signals is given to the CNS by the CNS central nervous system. This signals is initiated by the stretching of urinary bladder as it gets filled with the urine. In response, the stretch receptors on the walls of the bladder send signals to the CNS and the CNS passes on motor messages. The CNS passes on motor messages to initiate the contraction of smooth muscles of the bladder and stimulate the relaxation of the urethral sphincters, causing the release of urine. The process of release of urine is called the micturition, and the neural mechanism causing it is called the micturition reflex. An adult human excrete on an average 1 to 1 liter urine per day. The urine formed is light yellow colored watery fluid which is slightly acidic pH 6 and has a characteristic odor. On an average 25 to 30 gram of urea is excreted out per day. Various conditions can affect the characteristic of urine. Analysis of the urine help in the clinical diagnosis of many metabolic disorders as well as the malfunctioning of the kidney. For example, the presence of glucosuria, and ketone bodies, ketonuria in the urine are the indicative of the diabetes mellitus. Role of other organs in the excretion की बात करते हैं. Other organs like the kidney, lungs, liver, and skin also help in the elimination of the excretory waste. Our lungs remove large amount of CO2, approximately 200 ml per minute. 200 ml per minute or 200 ml per minute. 1 hour का निकालना है into 60. And also significant quantities of water every day. Liver is the largest gland in our body, secrete bile containing substances like the bilirubin, bilirubin, cholesterol, degrade steroidal hormones, vitamins, and drugs. Most of these substances you ultimately pass out along with the digestive waste. The sweat and the sebaceous gland in our skin can eliminate certain substances through their secretions. Sweat produced by sweat gland is a watery fluid containing NaCl, small amount of urea, lactic acid, etc. Though the primary function of sweat is to facilitate a cooling effect on the body surface, it also helps in the removal of some of the waste mentioned above. Sebaceous gland eliminates certain substances like the sterols, hydrocarbons, waxes through the sebum. This secretion provides a protective oily covering for the skin. Do you know that small amount of nitrogenous waste Do you know that small amount of nitrogenous waste could be eliminated through saliva too? Sterols, hydrocarbons, waxes, and sebum are excreted by the sebaceous gland. Sweat gland. Disorders of the excretory system की बात करते हैं. Malfunctioning of the kidney can lead to the accumulation of the urea in the blood. A condition is called the uremia, which is highly harmful and may lead to kidney failure. In such patient, urea can be removed by a process called the hemodialysis. During the process of hemodialysis, the blood drain from the convenient artery is pumped into the dialysis unit called the artificial kidney. Blood drain from a convenient artery is pumped into the dialysis unit after adding as anticoagulant like the heparin. The unit containing a coiled cellophane tube surrounded by the fluid dialysis fluid having the same concentration as that of the composition as that of the plasma except the nitrogenous waste. The porous cellophane membrane of the tube allow the passage of molecule based on the concentration gradient. As nitrogenous waste are absent in the dialytic fluid, these substances freely move out, thereby clearing the blood. The cleared blood is pumped back to body through vein after adding antiheparin to it. This method is boom for the thousands of uremic patients all over the world. Kidney transplantation is the ultimate method in the correction of acute renal failure, kidney failure. A functioning kidney is used for the transplantation from a donor, preferably a close relative, to maintain its chance of rejection by the immune system of the host. Modern clinical procedures has increased the success rate of such complicated techniques. Renal calculi, stones, or the insoluble mass of crystal salts, oxalate, etc., formed within the kidney. Glomerulonephritis is the inflammation of the glomeruli of the kidney. And there are some points in the summary too which are important from the examination point of view. Let's have a look on that. The renal tubules start with the double-walled Woman capsule and further differentiated into the proximal convoluted tubules, Henle's loop, and the distal convoluted tubules. Filtration is a non-selective process. filtration is a non-selective process, and the GFR form per day is a 125 ml of the filtered environment capsule. Okay, and there are some points written back to the summary. These are that uh, Haley's loop primarily help in the maintenance of osmolar gradient 300 से 1200 osmol within the kidney interstitium. DCT and collecting duct allow extensive reabsorption of water and certain electrolytes which help in the osmoregulations of hydrogen, potassium and ammonia. DCT collecting duct allow extensive reabsorption of water and certain electrolytes which help in the osmoregulations. Hydrogen, potassium, and ammonia could be secreted into the filtrate by the tubules to maintain the ionic balance and pH of the body. DCT and collecting duct concentrate the filtrate about the 4 times. DCT and collecting duct concentrate the filtrate by about 4 times. Okay, that's all for this chapter. We have read all the points and along with the summary, and it took me 40 minutes approximately to finishing the chapter. Ultimately, somehow realizing that this is a very effective method to complete the chapter within a given slot of time. Otherwise, if I take it, read it alone without this camera and phone, then it took me 2 hours. Normally, easily took me 2 hours to read the line by line. And one thing also, I realized that while reading the text, I was totally focused on what is written in the book. No other thoughts are coming in my mind, so that's a very effective idea has getting to improve my focusing skills. Thank you, live streaming YouTube. So good night, guys. We have completed, and within a few minutes, I am going to be complete the another last more chapter, last one chapter, that is the locomotion and movement. Also, if I finish it today, it will be a great achievement and reward for me. At least I get over with the human physiology. Then I will start the chapters of biology which are coming on my test on Sunday, or like tissue and cell. These 2 chapters I will read next session. Okay, let's stop this here.